Thanks everybody for joining. So I am Greg Schreiner. I'm a Cleantech recruitment manager here at Redfish Technology, and I'm going to cover a quick history on Redfish, what kind of tech roles and non-tech roles we focus on. I know Leonard covered a lot on the economy, so that'll be real quick. We just have a couple slides there. What we see right now, current industry challenges, some things that we see as ways to break in, transferability of skills, and I'll share some success stories of people that we have helped transition into the green industry. So in terms of Redfish, we've actually been around since '97. We've been an award-winning firm, selected a number of times to the top 10 most dependable recruitment firm in the West. We've been featured on CNN, Forbes Magazine, Wall Street Journal, and a number of other publications. We originally cut our teeth in high tech back in '97. We still have a very strong focus in that area, so IT, software development, a lot of that's done in the Bay. And then about 5 years ago, we started a Greenfish team, which is focused on the Cleantech division, which I run. That is something that's been growing very aggressively. We're doing very well at. So some of the roles that we're focused on and industries we're focused on, there's a brief list here, but these are never going to be all-encompassing because it does change quite a bit, and I listened to a lot of Leonard's speech, and there are new and emerging sectors and sectors like solar that have been around forever that are now more mainstream. But typical roles that we'll see on solar, a lot of it is going to be in manufacturing, so it's like panel development, panel manufacturing, solar cell development, solar cell manufacturing, as well as all the equipment that goes in and around solar systems, so microinverters, inverters, converters, racking systems. On the other side, we do see a lot of roles focused on project management and actually building these systems, so development in the field, whether it's rooftop or ground mount type systems. So there's a lot of roles that are tech focused around those as well. Could be like for people that are designing the systems, engineers, and similar to with wind, there's wind turbines, nacelles, all these wind towers, all these things that are being manufactured for wind, and then there's also a large component around the actual development in the field. Geothermal, we don't do a ton in that space, but obviously a clean technology, and again, where we come into play is a lot on the tech side is going to be the turbines. We also do some geologist type roles, drillers, steam engineers, refracturing, those type of things. Hydro is another industry in the tech, but again, not doing a lot there. It's really tied more close to what you consider your traditional energy. It's a pretty slow-moving, methodical type of industry, so it can be really frustrating. So we don't do a whole lot there, but we have worked on some pretty unique roles in China and some other places for like concrete backgrounds, dam engineers, those type of things. On the biomass side or biofuels, this is kind of a controversy, or a lot of controversy surrounds this industry, whether it's really providing a lot of reduced carbon footprint. But this is really an industry that's focused on anything that creates, a fuel that we can use or a specialty chemical that is not petroleum based. So we see a lot of pharma backgrounds, life sciences. It's a pretty small industry as well. And then on the battery side, this is obviously important for not only energy storage, but they're also using it for power distribution or generation for backup and those type of things. So we do see a lot of growth in this sector right now. Electric vehicles, and as I mentioned, energy storage, power generation for backup power. And we're seeing a lot of engineers on the control side, so people who can come in and create like control algorithms or strategies on how to manage this power. So that's like a real shortfall we have right now, but there's a lot of electrical, mechanical, systems engineers, a lot of things in and around battery that we're working on right now. In terms of electric vehicle, there's a lot of crossover from the battery side to electric vehicle as well, but we're also seeing a lot of folks coming out of like mechanical, in the automotive space, robotics, biotech, medtech, crossing over into electric vehicle space. So a lot of things that we're focused on. We're not doing a whole lot of like the wheels and tires and and panels of the car or anything like that, the steering wheels. But what we do a lot of is the charging systems, the battery systems, control systems to make these things all work together. On the smart grid side, we are unfortunately not doing a lot in smart grid from our standpoint, but this is a huge emerging field. So anytime we have appliances or motors, or anytime machinery is hooked up to the grid, we're trying to figure out a way to make these things all talk together and interact together, so we can create a smarter grid. So we see a lot of folks coming out of like radio frequency or RF industry, wireless industry, the networking industry, that are getting into smart grid. Energy efficiency has been really big for us the last couple of years. I think Leonard had mentioned a few slides ago that he was seeing a lot of growth in this space as well, but this is a unique one because it covers a lot of different things in terms of software, hardware, sales, marketing, and there's like residential, commercial, industrial. There's just a huge field, so it's a really fun one for us to be involved with. But if you have a software background or a hardware background, we're seeing a lot of people coming out of the traditional software fields that are coming in and developing software for energy efficiency companies that essentially tie this software platform into your heating and cooling and your building automation systems that allow it to run more efficiently. And then there's the hardware play where these things are actually the devices that are controlling the motors, on the pumps and the cooling systems and those type of things. So there's a lot of federal funding out there for these systems to get installed as well, so companies don't have as much of a capital risk on them. So it's been a pretty good industry for us. Now on the non-tech side, it's the same industries that we just talked about, but we do a lot of sales, marketing for these industries. So again, for like let's just say energy efficiency, if you have a software as a service type of sales background, or even a hardware component background, selling into some of these larger commercial industrial sectors, that's a great way to get into the energy efficiency space. But we do a lot of project management roles for solar and wind. A lot of these power generation sites that are being built, they need some really good project managers, and not everybody is going to have solar or wind experience or geothermal experience. So if they've worked on large infrastructure projects and have that 30,000 foot view, that's where we see a lot of crossover there. So I know Leonard talked a lot about accountants and all these different roles. We're obviously very tech focused, but every company that we work with needs HR. They need administrators. They need operational folks on the supply chain side, logistics, and we don't do a lot of that. So there is any company is going to need those type of positions. So if you're looking to be more involved in a green technology company, that's a way to get in if that's your background. It's not tech related as well. So some of the things that we've been seeing on our research, and we've tried to pull some recent numbers, but it's hard to get this data. So in terms of 2010 and moving backwards, the clean tech economy has really been real close to the overall economy. But I think the real interesting fact is from the recession, it's really outperformed the overall economy, and that's really what I wanted to address in this slide. In terms of areas and I guess focus on where a lot of this growth is, the South is actually the largest green tech boom, I should say, at 30%, but the West per capita actually has more job creation at 25%. And again, I know we have a lot of people from a lot of different areas, so it's nice to see a slide like this that just shows you that it is pretty well dispersed in terms of the clean tech growth and what we're seeing. And there's a lot of outliers like Albany, New York, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Overland Park, Kansas, like Austin area in Texas, that are really growing. So if you're not in a major city where you think of, green energy as the next big thing, like San Fran or Boston or New York, there is a lot of growth going on in a lot of different cities. So that's a good sign. In terms of, where we focus, where some of these jobs are, it's interesting to look at this slide because you look at waste management and recycling and all these things, we don't play in those spaces at all. They tend to be a little less tech focused, but those are huge industries and some really great organizations. So as you evaluate, where you're coming from and where you want to go, and you look at these are current actual numbers of jobs that are currently being worked in that space. So, we look at the electric vehicle and smart grid; they're pretty small in comparison to some of these other things like hydropower and waste management that we're not involved in. So I think it's just good to look at this and have a better understanding of where the jobs currently are and where your interests may fall, and that'll kind of give you an overview of how challenging it may be to get into that industry. So the growth, again, this thing has been evolving in a little bit of a downhill snowball where it's continuing to roll, continuing to grow, and there's a lot of legislation that plays pretty significant impact on how these things are growing. But the funding's been consistent. The emerging markets have been consistent with like the electric vehicle, energy storage. So we're seeing some of these younger, new energy, green tech kind of roles starting to emerge, as well as the growth of traditional like solar and solar thermo and wind. So that's the positive on it. The downside on it is there's been a pretty good tech pool for this first kind of wave of hiring, and it has been a little bit of a land grab where companies, were getting a lot of funding and growing. They went out and grabbed all the available bodies. But there's still a number of decent tech players out there, but it's getting more competitive. So companies are now shifting to having some flexibility on who they're hiring because they have to. So again, a good sign for people that are looking to get into this industry. 94% of all the candidates that we placed in the last 12 months were already currently working, and 63% of those actually came from the same industry. So now, for people who aren't working or people who are trying to transfer, that just talks a little bit about the challenges of doing so. So I will share some stories about some folks who have transferred over into different industries, and I'll also talk to you a little bit about some of the transferable skills. But I think the most important thing, and when you're looking to identify a career in green tech, is, for one, figure out what sector you want to be in: solar, wind, sustainability, recycling, organic food, whatever it is, and then what your skills are applicable to, and if they're not, how are you going to be able to recreate those skills to match what you're wanting to do. I think I get a lot of calls from a lot of different people saying, hey, I live up in New York, I've been doing some software sales, and I want to get into the alternative energy, the green sector, and I'm like, okay, so what do you want to do? Well, I don't know, I just like to get into green. And I feel like that's where a lot of people struggle, is they like the idea of it, and they may have not, when they graduated from college or whatever, maybe I said, hey, I want to do software sales, and it just fell into it. But this is a smaller market, and I think the big piece is really to identify where your passion is and where you want to be. So do a little bit of soul searching, and that's kind of what we talk about in this breaking in piece. But be flexible. But I think one of the big things that I talk about is having a diamond approach, which you start out, if you look at a diamond and the shape of a diamond, you start out very specific with one point of, okay, this is the sector and the industry I want to be in, and this is the role I want to be in, and you start looking for that role specifically. So let's say you're a electrical engineer and you want to do battery charging systems for the electric vehicle industry. So that's what you'll target specifically, and you'll go look for those jobs specifically, and you'll start seeing other opportunities that are in and around that space as well, and you can start funneling out, and then you'll start building some traction on those roles, and as you gain traction on those roles, funnel it back into the things that, again, that you're most excited about and passionate about. In terms of the research piece, I know Leonard covered a ton of stuff here. Just from our perspective, working with recruiters is sometimes really advantageous, and sometimes it's not. So if you have a specific skill set that is transferable into the clean tech space, or if you've already been in that space, that's where a recruiter can really help. A lot of people try to use recruiters as a tool to get into green tech without really, any transferable skills. And unfortunately, a company typically will reach out to us, ask us for help on a role, but they want a very specific background, and they're paying us money to go out and find that very specific background. And that's where, I think what Leonard's doing and what a recruiter will do are a little bit different. He'll cover a pretty large scope where we're very honed in and focused on very specific roles. Now, when we're talking with folks, again, I think it's a great way for you to network, find out what jobs recruiters are hiring, what companies they're working for, and if there's a skill set that you have that may be a fit for one of those jobs. It's another great networking tool, way to get your name out there, your resume out there. So that's the positive on it. Again, I think focusing on a specific role that you have transferable skills is the biggest and most advantageous thing to break into the industry. Now, there's a lot of things you can do in terms of taking a step back in your career by gaining additional education, training, certifications. And again, this is really going to depend on the industry that you want to get involved in. It's such a huge industry. There's so much training that has been around for years, and new training that's come online to support a lot of these green tech jobs that have come up. So some of the things that are, I guess, kind of industry standards or well known in the industry I wanted to share with you, and that's like lead certifications, project management certifications. For solar, there's a NABCEP certification you can get that's pretty well known in the industry. And there's a lot of organizations you can get involved with as well. And there's a list of these that Leonard shared with you. And I think the more involved you get in these industries, the more well networked you're going to be. And you'll learn a lot more about really where it is you want to be in the industry. So that's a big piece of it as well. In terms of some of the things that we see on the transferable skills, so in solar, a lot of it on the manufacturing side is going to be coming from semiconductor industry. So thin film, silicon-based manufacturing is directly applicable, actually more detailed than solar manufacturing. We're also seeing a number of folks come out of different high-tech manufacturing industries that work well on the plant floor for solar. The same can be said for wind. Wind's going to be a little more focused on companies like Cummins or John Deere or Caterpillar, these big, large, rotating, heavy machinery that emulate the same type of spinning and rotating as a turbine does. So we see a lot of crossover there. On the just in renewables in general, like again auto manufacturing, there's a lot of high tech robotics, a lot of really good experience on the plant floor there that transfer over into a number of different industries. Smart grid, we talked about it a little bit before, just the RF wireless networking type of backgrounds really transfer well into smart grid. On the energy transmission side or energy efficiency side, again, there's a large software play. So if you develop software, if you've been selling software, anything with software transfers really, really well into the energy efficiency play. In terms of electric vehicle, there's a ton of power electronics involved in these things in terms of, again, the charging piece, the controls, power conversion, and the power conversion really goes across the industry. If you have a really good power conversion background, those transfer almost to any industry in clean tech space in terms of tech. So those are some of the skills that we typically look for folks that are transferring or trying to transfer into clean tech. So a couple of folks that we've placed recently, these are people that have given us permission to share their pictures and a little bit of the story on them. But so Nitin Shah was a guy that I found looking for this MES analyst or MES engineer, and that's a manufacturing execution systems engineer, very specific role, but a lot of different companies will use MES engineers from food, food industry, packaging industry. It basically ties all the automation equipment together into one nice little computer or software package. So, again, very specific skill set, but he could go into a lot of different industries. And then Rich Brandenburg had a tremendous project management background in like typical, construction. So large retail, large office, some industrial buildings and those type of things. So he had that 30,000-foot view, oversaw contractors and all these different type of things that are required for large solar installations. Could be the same thing for wind installations. So there's a really good crossover that happens there. In terms of electric vehicle, we found Subrat working at a medical device company. He was doing a lot of the power supply stuff, power conversion with the medical on the medical device side. So again, electric vehicle, a lot of it is very much focused on power conversion. How do we get that power from the battery to the motor to the wheels? And how do we control all that? And that's, again, a lot of medical device, med tech type of industry, and really there's a traditional power industry. There's a lot of power conversion products that are being built there, network hardware applications. So a lot of that is a crossover into electric vehicle. Matt Simonini, he was a traditional automotive guy, and we had him placed at a company that does large transit bus electric vehicles, and they're used all over the nation. But a pretty cool company. Anyway, he was working on traditional control strategies for GM on just regular, consumer vehicles. But again, as I mentioned earlier, the controls folks are really hard to find. So if you have that type of background, you can kind of get a job anywhere. So you may not be on this webinar. So those are just some stories. We just had I mentioned a lot about the software. We actually just placed a lady up in the Northeast with an energy efficiency company. She had a straight software as a service background, selling into large commercial industrial clients, and we were able to take those skills and apply them to energy efficiency. You're selling to the same group of buy-off personnel in the industry, like CFOs and the IT department, as well as on the energy efficiency side, there might be a couple more people involved in that sale. But those are some of the backgrounds that we look for, and so hopefully that gives you a little bit of overview of what we're seeing, what we're focused on specifically. I know it's a little bit more narrow and scope than what Leonard covered, but if you have any questions or comments or want to see if there's roles that we're focused on that we could help, that you may be a fit for, here is my info. I would say the monthly newsletter is a great tool for anybody who's looking. It provides a lot of tips to job seekers, industry trends of what we're seeing. The actual job postings that we have that are new and fresh every week are going to be on there as well, or every month I should say. And then we also have the job search page, so you can go in and narrow down your criteria, what you're looking for. But feel free to shoot me an email or reach out to me directly.